Hey, everybody. On the Run with Beards and Dunn is back. And Beards, we have a guest.
Yes.
You want to tell them who's on with us this week?
Don, I'm so excited. So Ben Olson, he's a Minnesota boy and went to Blaine High School. Graduated in 2018, I think. Was it 2018? Yeah, 2018. And I got to know Ben last summer on August 19th. You know, I'm a fishing guide here in northern Minnesota. And I had a chance to spend 6 hours in the boat with Ben and his mom and dad, Brad and Darcy. And honest to gosh, Don, I've been fishing guide since I was a kid, and I've met a lot of people over the years. But I tell you what, I don't know that I've ever met a nicer family that's so supportive. I could tell right away. I thought as soon as before I got in the boat when we were driving to the gosh dang lake, I thought, man, this family is pretty cool. And I got to spend 6 wonderful hours with Ben and his mom and dad. And it was a hot day. Remember that, Ben? There was no wind.
Yeah.
It was dead calm. And we were mainly walleye fishing. I think we kept 6 or something. But just the time spent in the boat with Ben and his mom and dad, what a wonderful family. So, Ben, thank you so much for being on the show with us today.
Yeah,
I appreciate the kind words. That was a fun day for all of us. So
we got to do it again.
We could make it happen.
And Ben, I've been fishing with Dick, and I tell people all the time, if you don't catch fish, you're still going to have a good time. And trust me, you're going to catch fish with Dick. Dick knows how to find them, and so it's a great time. And Ben, we've never met before, but I've followed your career here at SDSU, and being Dick and I are old SDSU alumni, and it was so exciting, to see. I know Dick and I have always been a little frustrated because we've seen some really outstanding runners go through the SDSU programs over the years, and a lot of them graduate, and I don't want to sound negative. They kind of fall off the face of the earth. It's kind of like, they've got the potential more than I think I ever had. Their times are all better than mine, and
well done. And I think part of it is, especially nowadays, Don, when you and I got done with school
nothing else
and stuff,
to do.
Man, we were ready to move out to my grandma's in Montana and train and live at her place and stuff. But I think today, young people, there's so much pressure on them to, get their degree and then get a high paying job. And listen, you're only young once. And my hat goes off to Ben, to kind of proceed after SDSU and see where he can go with his running, because you only have that chance once in a lifetime when you're young, and you can, kind of throw caution to the wind a little bit. And no matter what the results are, because I kind of went through the same thing. I didn't want to be my age now. I'll be 68 next month and look back and say, gosh, dang it. Why didn't I give it a shot when I had that opportunity? So, Ben, hats off to you.
And I echo that as well.
Thanks.
And so let's get to you, because nobody wants to hear us talk. How did this, I want to get inside your head a little bit. And why is Ben Olson, taking his running, and he took it to the Olympic trials, which is, wow, congratulations. Just getting there is the battle. And, but let's back up tell us a little bit about your, when did the running thing get started for you? I read somewhere you were a skier.
Yeah, my aunts, uncles, and parents, they all ran and skied, and so my sister and I, when we were younger, all of our parents and aunts and uncles and relatives would be doing the races, and so we would all be thrown in the kids' races. That's kind of where the inspiration started, I guess. My sister and I eventually started to be asked to be dropped off a couple blocks away from home and let us run home and stuff like that. And then we have some trees in our front yard, and I would always want to get time to see how fast I could run around all the trees. So I don't know, my passion for running started when I was pretty young. And yeah, I'm glad I was able to stick with it. I know a lot of times when you start that young, there can be burnout and stuff, but I've just always loved it. And mainly it's the people that keep me going, and just the community of runners. So that's probably been the best part of what's kept me in it.
Well, yeah, because Ben, I look back at your high school career, and we were fairly similar as far as our timing. You were a little quicker than I was, but then, gosh dang, when you got into college, I mean, you really started, improving your time, and you got down to 4:06 in the mile. I mean, that's that's getting to that ultimate goal of trying to break, the 4-minute mark.
Yeah.
So, and,
Yeah.
5K, 14:10, 29:19 for 10K, man,
hmm
that's moving along.
Yeah, thanks. Things definitely started to click in college. We had like a pretty big recruiting class, um, and they're just a fun group to be with, and we all motivated each other. And I think that's ultimately what made us all better. So yeah,
Did you get
especially, and
recruited?
I have to give.
Yeah.
Did you get recruited
Oh,
then, Ben, out of high school by like Coach DeHaven or what?
I think I reached out to him first. I don't really remember how that went exactly, but we
Yeah.
had a long conversation going. And obviously, yeah, I have to give credit to Rod as well for my college success too. But yeah, I think we started talking at least a year before I committed to SDSU. So we had a good working relationship going into college as well.
Nice. And Dunn, Ben, you'll find out Dunn is like, he's Mr. Statistics. Honestly, I can't remember my times, but
I love it.
Dunn loves that kind of stuff.
I do. I got started this morning. I Google searched you, Ben, and it's so impressive nowadays. It's almost humbling, or how do I want to say this? The Olympic trials has every one of your mile splits and breaks it down per mile pace. I mean, you can't hide. I could go to races and dropped out. Nobody knew it, and then you'd come home and they'd go, "Didn't you go to New York?"
Or they'd find out a month later in the track and field news or something.
Maybe, but nowadays you can't. But your career at SDSU is, it was so much fun. I found the list. Every race you ran at SDSU is on the internet. And they have a nice.
Yeah,
if you go to,
crazy?
It is. It shows all your races, your freshman, sophomore, junior. Your junior year. Wow, what a junior year you had! You got a lot of your best times. And then your senior year, that 8:04 3000 is still an SDSU school record, I believe. Is it to this day?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, cool.
I'm actually in Brookings right now.
Oh, really?
There's a meet going on tonight. So there's probably some competition here to try taking that down. So we'll see how long it stands.
Yeah, you'll be out there tripping. No.
Yeah.
Throwing marbles on the track.
It's tough to see you when your best times, and I had my school record for the mile and 2 mile, and then a kid came along and broke them both. And there's a part of you that kind of is like, oh, it hurts a little bit, but not at all. That's what you want to see is when that bar gets set. That hopefully, because inspired you to go after some. You knew what some of those times were, and who had the record before you? Was it Gary Bentley?
It was Brad Lowry.
Did Brad Lowry have it? Like 8:05?
Yeah, 8:05.
Yes,
I barely got it. Yeah,
awesome. Well, anyway, talking about SDS, the culture, I think, is what you're talking about. And Dick and I have, and whenever I talk to any of my old teammates, Mark Bills, a couple All-Americans, and they were like brothers to us, and Mike, and I've told us, Mike and I, it was the best years of our lives. We had such a close bond with us guys. And, Mike had his future wife, Mary, and Mark was always dating different girls. I finally found my future wife, Karen. It was like a group of brothers who were finding their way through the world. And, we look back and just smile. We look back in the culture that, and I'm happy to hear it's still there.
Oh yeah. This new class, there's a pretty young group there right now. And they're doing some incredible things. They won conference again this year in cross country, which kept the streak alive for SDSU.
I was there. I came back to watch it. I had to see that.
Oh yeah,
that was cool.
Yeah, so that was fun.
And I was going to be there, but I think I was dealing with my infected knee.
Yeah, you were getting another knee surgery for Nick.
Right.
But yeah, no, and hats off to Rod and to you runners who really perpetuate. I think there's a tradition and a culture that that they don't forget their history, but it's like look forward. It's great to remember the guys who have come and gone, but now you guys just keep raising the bar higher for the next group coming down the road, which is great.
That's kind of the goal. We want to leave the program in a better spot than when we came.
Awesome.
So I'm excited to see what those young guys are doing.
Well, let's get back to you. I read somewhere that California International Marathon was your second marathon, or was that your first?
So I guess to kind of throw back to, I ran grandmas, but
Okay.
originally I was planning to race that one to try and qualify at it. It was cross country of my 5th year at SDSU. Me and Joe Miner were good friends and training partners. We were both like, we should just go for it at grandmas, like right after the track season, we're going to be fit. And so Rod kind of trained us for the 10K and the marathon throughout indoor and outdoor, with intentions to try and run 2:18 at grandma's. But by the end of track, both of us were just so burnt out. So that one
That's
I
a
ended
tough
up
one to
running
do.
with a couple. Yeah, I ended up running that one with a couple of friends more for fun.
Fun.
I think we had a goal to run like 2:40, and we ended up, I think, around low 2:30s.
I saw
in
that 2:31. I think
Uh,
you ran, Ben.
Yeah, so it ended up being more than a little fun run, but I guess kind of numbed me to the distance. But right after that, I signed up for CIM, just because after track I was pretty burnt down. I didn't know if running was something I wanted to keep doing, but all it takes is a week or two, and you get the fire back in
Absolutely.
you.
We all go through that, Ben.
Yeah, right.
Did you do what was your longest run going into that grandma's? Do you remember? Like what did Rod have you guys doing?
Going into grandma's, we did a couple 20s, but that was it. And then going into CIM, I did a 27, 25, 20, like a lot in the mid 20s.
And Ben,
so I was definitely more prepared
and
for
at
that one.
CIM, you end up finishing 11th, ran 2:16.04. So, so that's the first time you broke 2:20. Well, the first time I broke 2:20 was at the 1980 Olympic trials in Buffalo, New York, and I ran 2:16.01. So we got a lot in common here, pal.
There we go.
And Dick, what marathon was that
right.
for you, Dick? Was your 5th, 6th?
Let's see. That would have been
2:47, 2:33, 2:33, 2:31,
2:20, 2:21, 2:20, and then I think the 2:16.
7th marathon.
Okay.
So, and I know I got my PR. Gosh, I'm trying to think. I was dropping like 4 minutes a marathon at the age of 22, and I thought, man, at this pace, I'm gonna have the world record here in a couple of years.
Yeah.
When I hit 2:20, it all at once it didn't keep going that way.
I know.
And so I think that 4th, 5th, 6th marathon, I don't know, historically, if you look back at a lot of famous runners, it's unusual for a guy to go out there and bust let's be honest, your first real serious effort was a 2:16.
No kidding.
Which is pretty outstanding.
Ben, so you went into that with trying to run 2:18 to qualify. So I'm sure there were a bunch of guys that were kind of going for that same goal. So at CIM, did you kind of get into a group of guys that were kind of going for that same goal?
Yeah, that one was a little weird to start. I had to start back with the whole masses. That was probably the most nerve-wracking part of the race because I didn't have an elite or a sub-elite time.
Oh.
So there's a group of about like 200, 300 people in front of me.
Oh,
I
my
had to weave
goodness.
through in the first like couple miles.
Well, we're going to give you another minute.
But eventually, yeah, I found a guy with a bib that said OTQ on his back, and so I assumed he was the pacer.
Nice.
For 2:18, and I was like, all right, I finally found my group. That was around like mile 2 or 3. And then I kind of just kept I was feeling good and a little anxious in the early miles, and I just kept weaving my way up. And I eventually made it to the front of the chase pack. And the leaders were there's like 15 people way out in front by about a minute. So like, all right, I think I need to just chill out here.
Yeah.
And,
Smart.
It's a long race.
Well, yeah, because your ultimate goal is to get that qualifying standard.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And you got that.
Yeah, I didn't need anything more than 2:18.
Nice. And so you were feeling, how'd you feel coming, I'll be honest, the last 10K, good feelings, how were you doing?
I was feeling actually a lot better than I expected to be. So CIM is kind of a rolling and net downhill course. But then the last 6 miles, you cross over a bridge and it's very flat through Sacramento for the last like 5 miles.
That could be tough.
Yeah, and the sun started to come out a little bit, so it was hot, but my group started to kind of fall apart, and it was just me and another guy, and we started like pushing each other a little bit and not saying anything to each other, and started getting down to the low 5 minutes. And then at mile 24, I looked over to him and I said, is this like your qualifier? Like, have you hit the time yet? and we had a good moment and like shared some thoughts together. And so like by that point, we knew we had it in the bag.
Dang.
So that was pretty cool.
So what was it like, Ben, when you came across the finish line? I know your folks were there. I think your grandparents were there. Probably some other people. Knowing that you didn't just sneak under, but you broke it by a couple of minutes. That had to be an incredible feeling for you.
Yeah, I had to pinch myself to make sure it was real. No, I didn't know what to expect, so that was pretty much the best possible outcome I could have asked for. And then they had like a Olympic qualifying like blanket they threw over us at the finish line, and
Nice.
yeah, my family, and I had all sorts of relatives out there, so it was pretty
So
special to
Ben,
share it with
basically,
them.
then that race was what, early December? You had what, about 2 months to get ready
Yeah.
for the trials, which were just held on February 3rd of this year. And so, I know you're elated but you got to take a little bit of a back off a little bit because you've been training hard. I wish I would have done that. What I'm telling you that you probably did.
Yeah.
So what was your, after that race, kind of how did your program then get, what developed the next 2 months before the trials?
How'd you feel the next day, that next week?
Yeah.
Did you feel pretty good?
Oh, yeah. I was pretty sore for a while. Thankfully, I had a week off of running, but I got anxious, and I think I skied a few times in my week off. I went cross-country skiing just to, like, get outside. But, yeah, so I took a week completely off of running, and then I built from 45, 70, 90, and then I started hitting 100-mile weeks again.
Nice.
So it was a quick build up, and then I shut it back down just as quick to get ready for the trials.
And Ben, and you started working a little bit with some of the Minnesota elite runners, and Chris Lundstrom, was he kind of helping you a little bit with the coach there?
Yeah. Chris he's been awesome to work with, and he's been writing my plan since about September. And I was kind of off with most of the guys. Most of the guys ran their fall marathons in October, so I was doing most of my workouts alone. I hopped in a few with the track guys, but yeah, so it was really nice. He had the indoor track I was able to use over the winter. So yeah,
nice.
It was awesome to work with him. But yeah, most of my workouts were solo.
Well, should we get to it? I hate to bring it up, and you seem you're pretty open about it. Let's hear about your Olympic trials. And I know it didn't turn out the way you'd hoped, or us. I pegged you for a PR kind of
done. I hate to step on your toes here, but Ben, tell us. Okay, you qualified for the trials. Do they contact you and say this is a deal, and do they give you airfare money, and kind of tell us about what happened as during when they brought you in, and all the pomp and circumstances that go on with an Olympic trials?
Yeah. So the race director from California emailed us all a link to sign up for the Olympic trials. And from there, we had to fill a bunch of stuff out just about getting shuttled at the trials and if we needed hotels and flights. So yeah, they covered hotels and food and flights. There was a Brooks tent there that was handing out shoes and hats and bags and stuff too.
Mike ran for Brooks.
We got some swag like that. Yeah, cool. But yeah, so that was just kind of the beginning works. And actually, so I flew in on Thursday morning, and Thursday night, they rented out a part of Universal Studios for us. So they had like the park shut down for just the people at the trials.
Wow.
So we got to run around and go on some of the rides. I brought Joe Miner with me, who's also a runner for SDSU, and he's training with Minnesota Distance Elite now as well. So that was fun to be there with him. And it was like the athlete welcome dinner. So they had like some speeches and stuff, and it was kind of a cool moment to,
I can imagine,
moment to realize that I was there.
Right.
So, and then Friday, it was pre-race. So obviously very chill day, but all the athletes were in one elevator. And so I'd be like riding, or one hotel. And so on the elevators, I'd be riding up with some like people I'd been watching on TV.
Sure.
It's like I would see like Paul Chalimo and Galen Rupp and all these guys just walking
was
around.
it a little intimidating at all to you or not?
At first it was, and then I just had to tell myself that I belonged there
There
too.
you go.
So yeah, it definitely was. I'm like looking up to these guys and like, wow, I can't believe this is happening right now. And that really set in on, I remember when I first started to, I guess, flash forward to the race day, they shuttled us all over to the race. We were all on like one bus together. And we're all just sitting in a tent, and I'm just like looking around and seeing all the names, the big names and whatnot. And when I started my warm-up jog, I could like barely feel my legs.
Wow.
I was like shaking, so nervous. But I kind of kicked all the nerves out. So yeah, that was kind of the lead up. They definitely treated us well. I'd never like been treated like that going into a race before. Felt a little pampered. But it was cool. It was cool.
And Ben, so originally, it's in Orlando, Florida. It could be a very warm day. It could even be hot. Mm-hmm. Originally, they wanted to start it at noon for television. Mm-hmm. And then a lot of you athletes said, hey, wait a minute. You guys and gals wanted to start it at 8. So they kind of split it in the middle and started about 10 o'clock. But, I mean, it didn't look like, I watched the whole thing. It didn't look like there was a cloud in the sky. And even just that sunshine out, even if it was a little bit cool, in the 50s, still, boy, once that sun starts coming up, it can get warm pretty quick.
Yeah, I had talked to Scott Underwood before the race as well, and he lives down there, obviously, over the winter, and he was telling me the Florida sun's different than Minnesota.
Yeah.
So there was actually a lot of the athletes racing. They'd been living down there for a month or two, just trying to acclimate to the heat. I was doing it the poor man's way, and I was bundling up on the treadmill in our basement.
There you go.
Trying to get it done. But yeah, it definitely was a little hotter than, I don't know, you'd expect for a 50, upper 50s.
Did you wear a hat
low 60s
or anything?
Day.
Did you cover your head or didn't? Now, Dick had the painter's
Like when I was running on the treadmill?
Yeah, no, when you were down at the race, did you?
Oh, in the race. No, I didn't.
Okay.
There's a lot of people wearing hats, though.
Yeah, okay.
So maybe that was a good move. And they have like some ice headbands now, too, that a lot of guys are wearing.
Oh, nice.
Different strategies.
So kind of run through, tell us, okay, you're at the starting line, your heart's going 100 miles an hour because of the excitement and everything.
I've got it right here, Ben, every mile, right down to the second.
Oh.
Let's hear it.
Have you gone back and looked at this?
Yeah, I had my watch on as well, and I was kind of tracking splits
because you were nailing it. I'm just going to brag about you a little bit because I know you won't. 5:02. It looks like you went out, which is with the huge mass of runners, I would assume for that first 5 miles, it looked like 5:01s, 5:02s. What happened? Then you ran a 5:12. Did your kind of realization like, hey, this is not going to work, or what was going in your mind?
Yeah. Well, going into the race, I thought I was in a good spot fitness-wise, and I thought if I could at least run what I did at CIM, I would place pretty high on a day like that. I was thinking if I ran the same course in the same conditions as CIM again, I could run around 2:13. But so I went out, I guess, and I got a little excited. There's a big crowd surrounding all of us and cheering us on. And also my legs just felt a little flat at the start. There's a lot of standing. So I was just trying to wake myself up a little bit so I could settle back down. And I guess it didn't pay off in the long run. But yeah, that 5:12 was me trying to like settle down and like get my arms relaxed and breathing. And I kind of held it around that 5:10 to 5:15 for a while, I think.
You were a machine. You were 5:12, 5:14, 5:11, 5:15, 5:12, 5:08, 5:16, 5:16, 5:15, 5:15, 5:15. That's like a machine.
Yeah.
I mean, you were just nailing it. And you went through the half at 5:10 pace, right pretty much on what you kind of were running from CIM. But what's going on physically and mentally at this point?
And it's a loop. You got what, 2 loops or 2.5 loops or something you do?
There was a 2-mile loop to start, and then it was 3 8-mile loops.
Oh boy. Yeah.
Yeah, I still hadn't like my legs hadn't felt like relaxed anywhere really in the race. So I just kept trying to tell myself like 1 more mile, you're gonna feel good. 1 more mile, you're gonna feel good. And around halfway, I'm like, man, this is gonna be a tough second
Mm.
half. Just like hold on, like everyone's gonna start falling apart too. And then I got to around 15, and I was like, oh man, this is it's a tough day out here. And then 16 and 17 rolled around, and 17 is really when like doubts started to creep in to my head.
Was it mainly in your
And
legs,
then
Ben, that you didn't feel the best? How was?
yeah,
Yeah,
I just felt flat, and nothing was really working for me. And with lap splits every mile, I think that started to get into my
yeah.
head a little bit as well, because I could see the clock every time,
Mhm.
and people were passing me. And I just got to a point where I was barely moving, and
Now you're here.
decided to
You're
call
you're
it.
you're barely moving. You did a couple 5:31s, the 16th and 17th mile, and even though when you're running 5:10s, 5:31s all at once, yeah, that's a noticeable change of cadence and all that
Yeah,
sort of thing. And then that
yeah,
18th mile was a
mm-hmm.
5:55. You came around with 1 lap to go, and I had this happen to me at New York with my wife was at 17-mile mark as I was dying, and I saw her,
Mm-hmm.
and mentally I was done. And I don't know if you can relate to
Yeah,
something like that with you go with 1 lap to go. I'm coming by, and there's I don't know who was there, or did it just that it was just it made it too easy for me. Dick, I think you said
yeah,
at the Olympic trials you were not gonna you were gonna finish that if you had to crawl.
Oh,
At the
yeah,
same
my last one in
yeah,
1988.
yeah, and so
Yeah,
your motivation was pretty high there, but at the same time, how easy would it have been? It's pretty easy to bail on a marathon, but when that lap course, or like with New York, I came by Central Park or in First Avenue before you go into Central Park, and there's my wife. We just had to walk across the park to get to the finish line from that point. It made it
right.
way too easy,
yeah.
and I don't know if you can relate to any of that or not.
Yeah, I definitely can. Like mentally, it was obviously a big challenge, along with physically. And when those two just
Yeah,
start
it's
going heading south, it's hard to come back from. Um, and I was decently close to the finish line, but kind of a side story on that. There was some medical people. There's three of us. I dropped out. It was right around like the water stations, and two other guys followed in a couple minutes later, and we were all just kind of sitting there on the side. And they kept calling for like a medic to come with and bring us to the finish line. Um, Long story short, it took me over an hour to get to the finish line, and I was probably standing about a half mile away.
Wow.
But I couldn't walk. My feet were cramping pretty bad. Um, but we got picked up eventually, and we were getting driven around, but everything is closed down, so we weren't able to cross the course or anything because the women were still running
Sure.
by us. And so eventually, me and this other guy riding in the cart were just like, all right, we're just going to get out and walk to the finish line. And so I stepped out, and my feet just like buckled up, and I like collapsed to the
Oh my
ground,
gosh.
and I fell in the grass. And what I didn't know is I fell on a fire ant hole.
Oh,
And so all of a sudden, like
that got you
fire
moving, I'll
ants,
bet.
yeah,
yeah. I couldn't stand up, and all these fire ants were like crawling
Oh
around me.
my
So like
gosh.
the medic like dragged me by one arm. And I still have bites all
Oh
over
my
me.
gosh.
Yeah. Yeah, so that just added insult to injury.
So Ben, out there on
But
the course, before you ended up calling it a day. So
mhm.
did you have your own concoction to drink, or were you getting plenty of fluids out on the course when you had that opportunity at the stations?
Yeah, hats off to the race for like putting on such like good fluid stations, because I think they had 19 like general fluid stations where they had water and Powerade and like some gels and stuff. And then I had 6 stations with my own bottles. Um, and I'd never had my own bottles before. They were handing out like noon cups at CIM. And then eventually some of the lead guys started sharing their bottles with me as well. So I just kept it at noon again. I don't know if you've heard of that brand, NUUN.
Oh yeah, I
Um,
have. Never tried it, but
yes, yeah, so that's what I used, and I taped a couple gels to some of my bottles as well. But yeah, we had six bottle stations, and I was able to grab my bottle every time. That all went pretty
did you
smooth.
did you take some goo somewhere along the way at one point or a few times?
Yeah, I took a goo at 6 and 12,
Okay.
and then I was planning to do like 18 and like 22, I believe, as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So looking back, anything come to mind if he said, well, I think here's what happened, or no, just I did everything I wanted to do. There was no
Yeah,
chalk it
it's
up.
hard to say because I think I had a great build and everything was going good. The workouts leading up, I felt a little flat, but I never really base those workouts. I don't
Yeah.
chalk them up to mean
Right.
anything. I'm just like, well, that got my bad day out of the
Yeah.
way, so I'm gonna feel great on race day. Um, I know, like Thursday, I had to get up around 3 a.m. for my flight, and so getting in that day, I ran once I got in, and I did not feel good on Thursday. And then Friday, I also felt a little sluggish, and maybe I should have done something a little bit more to wake my legs up, just like add in some faster paces. Um, but I don't know. I don't have any regrets with anything I did. I thought I was yeah, training and everything went well. I was eating clean. That's thanks to my mom. She's been like my professional chef. So I don't know. I don't have
Well,
regrets.
that's a good thing.
Good.
And Ben, so Ben, you're what, 24?
23.
I'm 23.
23. Okay, you're a
Yes.
young buck. I mean, you know, so I know you're a mechanical engineer, got a mechanical engineering degree and whatnot from SDSU. So are you, I mean, you still got a lot left in you where you can make some big improvements. I mean, I don't think I set my PR till I was 26 at Boston. I just turned 26.
Mhm.
So what are your plans? Do you want to keep going and maybe see what the next 4 years brings or what?
Yeah, I'm just kind of taking it one step at a time right now.
Yeah.
The trials was definitely a motivating experience. So I think I'm going to continue racing through this year at least and just kind of take it a year at a time and see where life takes me. But I would definitely like to return to the trials if I'm able to and healthy. But as far as this year goes, I haven't circled any races definitely on the calendar. But I'm thinking about doing the Gary Bajorkland half and then a fall marathon.
Oh, good.
And thinking about running Twin Cities. And then I know Chris Lundstrom, he wants me to get back on the track while I'm still young as well this spring. So maybe try to hop in a 5K or something fun like that.
Do you know Joel I'm going to mess up his name, Welchow?
Yeah, right.
Welchow. Okay. Did you guys have a chance to hang out at all, or is he kind of doing, you're on the same group training or?
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we did our like pre-meet runs together, and he's a pretty quiet guy. He's reserved. But yeah,
okay.
We all would have like our meals together and stuff like that. So
cool.
The whole Minnesota distance lead team was together for a lot of the weekends.
This was his second trial, and I know I was reading through the stats. He was 56. Now he was 28th. His time was kind of what you were thinking. If you could run 216, he ran 216, got 28th. And so I think you're kind of right on. If you could have ran that 216 again, you'd been in the sharp end of the group. I think it were like 227 athletes had qualified. Do you know off the top of your head?
Yeah.
And I think you were like number
that sounds
72
right.
or something. I saw on the list, and of course Joel was like 15th or something. And so
yeah,
you guys, I'm with Dick. It's exciting to see. And I'm just going to echo, not that we're trying to pressure you, but we really want you to keep running, Ben. Okay. Because, and I mentioned two people and they'll probably hear this, Joe Chamberlain, who was a former SDSU, and Mike Bills, and they were all Americans, and both of them neither one ran a marathon in their best. And they years later regretted it, and at the time you'd say, well, why didn't you? And it's, everything's circumstantial and relative to where you're at in your life.
Right.
And, and I kind of echo what Dick said, I look back and I smile, we did what we could. Could we have done more? I don't know. We tried as hard as we could, I think. And so when I hear somebody goes, I'd like to try hard and see what happens. I think that's commendable.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough,
thanks.
Working. I don't know. We're not going to get into your personal relationships or anything, but it's a commitment that I think you'll always appreciate.
Well, Ben, this, the running the marathon, That's the easy part. It's like Dunn just said.
Oh,
It's
Lord.
that commitment. If you want to do something in that sport, and especially in the marathon, you're talking 100+ mile weeks. You're talking having to, pass up on going out to the New Year's Eve party or something like that because you got a 20-miler the next day or whatever it might be. So
or leaving
it's
early.
that right.
Yeah.
It's that commitment, and that really is the hardest part of, again, the running the marathon itself is kind of like frosting on the cake. That's what you've been training for. And it's all those months and years of putting back-to-back weeks of 100+ mile weeks together. That's the wear and tear on a guy, both physically and mentally.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, you're 100% on. Yeah, I'm enjoying it right now, and I think as long as I keep enjoying it, I'm going to keep doing it.
That's the key. What's got to help too, if I remember right from our fishing trip with your mom and dad and yourself, your mom and dad are both physical therapists, right?
Yeah, they are.
So that's got to kind of help a little bit if you got some little aches and pains going on, I would think.
Yeah, it definitely does. Mainly, they just calm me down and tell me not to worry about it. That's the main thing I get. They're just gonna be like, "You can keep running. You're fine." I've been blessed to not have anything major come up. I was dealing with some Achilles stuff for a while, leading into CIM. But I remember the second I dropped to below 100 miles, all my pains went away.
Nice.
It was magical. And yeah, I've been pretty healthy since. But definitely having them as a resource is super helpful.
Oh, it's got to. Now, you'd mentioned is your sister younger or older than you?
She's a year younger.
You're younger.
Than me.
Now, is she a runner still? Is she run or anything?
Get this. So she's living in Antarctica for our winter, their summer.
Oh my gosh.
She has a job down there.
My.
I know she just ran a marathon, like an Antarctic marathon, a couple weeks ago.
Oh, darn! Get to run with the penguins.
So, yeah. She's been sending some pictures of penguins. They're pretty sweet. But she just loves being outdoors and doing activities. She's a big cross country skier too. That's what she did in college. She's not like super competitive right now. She's more just enjoying it, which I think is super commendable. And yeah, it's kind of cool to see where her running and stuff is taking her.
Well,
and for you, unfortunately, with being a cross country runner, and there's basically across the Dakotas and Minnesota, there hasn't been enough snow to spit on. It seems like
Right. Yeah, it's been tough. They make snow in the cities, so I was just out skiing a couple days ago, actually.
And they got the big World Cup coming up in a couple weeks.
Yeah, that's right. That's in not this weekend, but
now
next.
Will you go and watch that and see the what's her name, Dugan or
Jessie Diggins?
She's something else.
Yeah, she's pretty incredible. I do have tickets.
Do ya?
Yeah, so I think it's definitely gonna be an exciting time in the cities. It's the first time that event has been in the United States.
I know it.
So I want to go down a path though with Ben here, because Dick and I have talked about every episode. The shoes.
Oh, thank you for bringing that up, Don.
You've been running long enough, Ben, that you probably started in junior high school. Super shoes didn't exist. They, I of course I haven't run for 30 years, so I don't know what kind of shoes, but they were pretty much like the shoes that probably Dick and I had. Maybe they're getting better with stability and all that great stuff. And then I don't know how many years ago, and it's a little controversial because, did Rupp get to use super shoes in the Olympics when he got the bronze before anybody else did? And I don't care. What's your experience? What shoes did you wear? Can you talk about it?
Yeah. I remember my first time putting them on, I think was my sophomore year of college, and I just felt like I was on a trampoline.
I know.
So definitely the first time you wear them, you have that experience, but since I've gotten used to them, as far as performance, I think they don't hurt. They definitely help at least a little bit. I don't know what number to put on it, but I would say they definitely help.
Dick and I think it's like 10 minutes.
And I think, 10 minutes.
Well, but Ben, and New Balance sent me some a couple years ago, and honest to gosh, I put them on, and I'm slower than molasses in January now, and they just walking in them, they were pushing me forward and then running in them.
Right.
But you know what I found? for myself, and I've heard it from athletes like yourself, is that your legs don't get near as beat up after like a marathon or long runs, things
Mm-hmm.
like that you can recover a little quicker. Is that true for
Yeah,
you?
that was gonna kind of be the next point. Yeah, I think your recovery is definitely enhanced, and that's probably the main benefit they have is in your training. I know double thresholds have become pretty popular, where you do 2 workouts in a day, and just your ability to recover is a lot better, I think,
Yeah.
when you're wearing those shoes. Um, so yeah, it's a cool era to be in, where everything's improving like that, but also, yeah, it definitely raises questions on the legitimacy of times being ran, and yeah, I guess I don't have an answer for that. Maybe I'll have to go run in my old shoes or
But you're
something.
using
See what
them,
happens.
racing in them, like at CIM. You used. I mean, why wouldn't you? uh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, I've been wearing Nikes.
Okay.
They're next percents. So, and then Brooks, they just gave us all their super shoes at the trials. So I'll try
Nice.
training in those
Go
ones
if
this
you go to
spring as well.
letsrun.com. I don't know if you go there, Ben. Do you ever go there? It's quite a.
I used to. I don't really
I
anymore.
think
Yeah,
Dick gave
if you
up on
do,
it.
stay off the message boards.
No,
It's the
no.
biggest
Yeah.
joke.
Yeah, your Dick's correct. But I went to the message board today, and oh, they were the Brooks. They're Zach Panning. They
Yeah.
said
hmm
he wore
Yeah.
Brooks shoes, and a lot of the message boards were panning them, not his name, but we're
Yeah.
really saying the poor athletes that took those free shoes and wore them paid a price, and they were really beaten up on Brooks.
hmm
And I'm not I have no knowledge of any of this, but they were saying they didn't see a much of a benefit for their athletes, but they were, like panning is, well, Hudson Brothers, what's it called? The Brooks Beast
Hanson.
yeah, group.
Yeah.
So I mean, he's committed to Brooks. I mean, he didn't have an option.
hmm
You, on the other hand, I guess are still freelancing. You don't have a shoe deal yet.
Yeah.
Your phone
No.
could be
No.
ringing. I think next time you go to
Yeah.
CIM, you will not be back in the general population. You'll be up in the front row
No.
Yeah.
the next time, or at grandma's or whatever. But I think the shoes,
Right.
when we talk with Bob Bartley, and I know Bob said he wants to talk to us about our thoughts on it, and it's kind of like, and Frank Shorter brought it up. Why go there?
hmm
It is what it is, and it's the technology is progressed. You get frustrated for somebody who wore a shoe and then looks at the guy next to him, and that shoe potentially gives him an advantage. You'd like it to be athlete to athlete, not shoe to
Right.
shoe. I see results now where they post the winners' times and names and the shoe they wore. I don't know if you've
Yeah.
Oh,
seen
Yeah.
that.
They do
really?
that now.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy.
It's like the shoe
Yeah.
wars are going on now. Where it's
Oh
it's kind of
my.
like, what was that movie with Ferrari and Ford, who
Oh,
could win Le
right.
Mans, and
Yeah.
stuff. It's that's what the shoe companies are kind of doing, and they're trying to prove theirs is the number
Right.
one and all that. And so you're in an exciting, like you said, it's an exciting time, and the opportunities
Yeah.
hopefully will be coming your way. Dick, what other thoughts do you have?
Well, just Ben, it's always fun to to kind of follow somebody, and
Oh, yeah.
from the upper Midwest, Minnesota. Minnesota, there's something over the years. The state of Minnesota has kicked out a lot of top-notch distance runners. You go way back to Buddy
Dawes,
Edelin, even
yeah.
probably before that, Ron Dawes, Gary Bjorklund, Barney
Mhm.
Klecker, Janice Klecker, his wife. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And to see that continuing, and somebody like yourself, you're young, and you're keeping the good old state of Minnesota on the map. And it's there must be something about, I know for me, I trained all the time, pretty much like you, by myself, and in the cold winters. The only time I ever went anywhere was I went to Atlanta for a couple of months before Boston in 1982, and everybody thinks I went there because of the cold. I went there because of the hills. I wanted to get,
Oh, sure.
in Atlanta,
Yeah.
you're either going up a hill or down a hill. And I don't know, there's something, I don't know if it's in the water or in the snow or what it is in
Right.
the air, but Minnesota, it continues to just kick out some really top-notch men. And look at Dakota
There you go.
Lindworm, who
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
the third
It's a
place
great
finisher.
example.
I mean, she grew
Yeah.
up and went to school not too far from Blaine in St. Francis,
No,
Minnesota.
yeah. St. Francis. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a super cool story, and just her underdog type of story.
Well, and you,
I don't know
Ben,
how, like what stats you know,
and
but
listen, that's got to keep you fired up. I mean, you look at her high school career with nothing to write home about, really, you know, and yet here she's going to represent the United States in Paris this next summer, and I mean that's got to kind of get you fired up a little bit.
Yeah, definitely cool to see. Doesn't matter your background, you just have to show up on race day, and that's I think kind of the beauty of the Olympic trials. It's just whoever shows up that day can make it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was super cool. We were able to celebrate with her a little bit that night, and it was just a special moment for Minnesota community and the Minnesota distance lead team.
Yeah,
very nice.
Well,
cool. Well, so I was going to finish with your what's next on your calendar, but it sounds like it's pretty the Gary Bjorklund half perhaps in June.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah. I was thinking about doing the Twin Cities Marathon. That's kind of always one I wanted to do. And this is a year where I don't need to run a fast time. I know historically it's not the fastest.
Right.
And I just think it'd be a fun atmosphere to be a part of, especially being from there.
Yeah.
So I think that's one that I might do. Other than that, maybe just find some fun races in between. Definitely like the environment after college is a lot different than racing collegiately, and it's fun. Just like you have people all along the course blasting music, and
right.
everyone's just happy for each other. When we're standing on like a start line at a college meet, it's so tense and everyone wants to beat each other, where at these races it's kind of like everyone's trying to build each other up. So it's definitely a fun community to be a part of.
And Ben, you got to put on your calendar. We got to go out another day of fishing this summer. I had so much fun with you, and we can talk shop and stuff and catch a few fish. Hopefully,
have to tell some more stories.
Well, Ben, listen.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Dunn and I we can't thank you enough. You're just such a nice young man. I mean, I knew that last summer when I met you and your mom and dad out fishing and stuff. So we want to thank you for joining us today and wish you all the best. I know I'll be following you, for whatever your endeavors are. And we want to thank everybody for listening today. And if you have any questions for Dunn or myself or comments about the show, you can contact us directly here at our website at beardsanddunpod.com, or you can leave us a comment on our Facebook, Instagram, or X, all at Beards and Dunn Pod.
Sure. And if you're watching on YouTube, of course, we always appreciate if you subscribe or leave us a comment. And Ben, just echoing what Dick said, thanks again. And it was a pleasure to finally get to meet you. I hope we get to cross paths. We'll try to get back for some SDSU alumni. Dick, are you listening?
Yes.
Next fall, I think, I'm going to be back in Minnesota fishing with Dick, I think around the 1st of October. So we might have to try to plan a cross-country get-together down at SDSU. We'll have to check their schedule and stuff. So
thanks again, Ben. Say hi to your mom.
Awesome.
Say hi to your mom and dad.
Thank you both.
All right, take care.
Best wishes.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.